Hey friend, it's so good to be here with you. I'm Charlene Shire, and in these next few episodes of the Becoming Home podcast, a project from fullyabundantlife.com, where you can find me talking about health, wealth, relationships, all kinds of things going on there. We've got a free guide on emotional processing and things like that. So run on over and check that out. Book a call if you need to. But the Becoming Home podcast is a project that I do with my daughter-in-law, Joellen, and you'll see her in a minute if you're watching on YouTube. If you're just listening, you'll be hearing her chime in. But through April and May, we've been talking about April showers bringing May flowers and just wanting to really rethink this idea of darkness. And what does it mean to be going through times of darkness? And do we need to be feeling bad? Like, I used to always feel bad about feeling bad. In a heavy religious system, it was not, I didn't feel like I was allowed to feel bad. Like I wasn't fixing my eyes on Jesus. I wasn't being spiritual enough. I was stuck in some kind of sin or something like that. That's why I was feeling dark or something. And having come out of that, I'm learning so much more about what darkness really is, what these times of darkness can be, and how much light is actually in there that no one could ever show me before. And so we've taken April and May to unpack some of these ideas. And in April, Joellen and I shared quite a few very vulnerable, very personal, dark times that we have faced in the last just handful of years. You know, those moments where it really feels like the shadows are closing in, but there's so much more that can be done in that time than just sitting and overeating, right? And not moving our bodies and getting depressed. These dark times can be super transformational if we let them. We just need to know how to get in there. We need to build up the skills and the tools to navigate through those dark times, plant solid seeds that are going to grow beauty in the time to come. Like the scripture says, there's weeping now, but there's beauty in the morning, or something like the joy in the morning. That's what it says. So this was a 2-hour long conversation that we've split up into 4 parts. We'll release a part each week throughout the month of May. And it will really just kind of talk you through and help you kind of identify some of those key tools and skills that we can use. But if you're wanting to kind of go back and hear more of the foundation of what we're talking about, I'd encourage you to go back to April's episodes. They are in order, same thing, long conversation that we broke up into parts. So you'll want to go back into April and start with part 1 and work your way forward. But we're all about holding space for real and vulnerable conversations. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about emotional health. We're talking about healing from trauma, embracing different generational perspectives, right? Because my generation dealt with things differently than today's generation does. And so Joe and I are trying to come together and hold space for one another, but we're also trying to hold space for other people who need help kind of navigating some of those dark times and some of that trauma. So if you are on your healing journey looking for support, tools, you're in the right place. So stick around as we explore some of these things and figure out how to turn our darkness into daylight, one conversation at a time.
We've been programmed to, man, you see anything from the way that religion looks at feelings to like pad and tampon commercials.
Yeah.
And they're talking about like, oh, here's this sporty pad, or here's a tampon that won't leak while you play soccer. I don't want to play soccer. I want to go lay in my bed. Like,
I don't know. Well, I guess there are some girls who are able to be super active, but
I am not.
Yeah.
And I just, for all the girls out there who go through that, we are with you.
Yes, I'm with you.
But there's so much programming in society and religion of being this thing or this superwoman. And I mean, might be a little off topic of this, but like they've discovered that like women going through a period, I can't remember if it's like the physical effects or the pain, it's a man going through a heart attack. And we don't ask men going through 5-day heart attacks that are externally bleeding to show up to work. By the way, that's just not a thing that we do. We actually put them in
for them to be in the hospital, I would think.
Yes. So again, like, there may not be as much truth in that statement. It's something I found on the internet, and the internet
well, it must be true.
Obviously so full of truth. But you know, like, that's something that someone else was saying that researchers have to, whatever, research it for yourself. But all to say, like, we are not superwoman. We do not have to be. And we are actually not superwomen for showing up to work when we don't feel good. We are superwomen for showing up for ourselves when we don't feel good. Like, showing up to work may not always be the right thing for you. You might need to take a mental health day. You might have to take a sick day. You might need to lay in your bed. Just let me add more permission to lay in your bed. Like, oh my gosh, because, like, it's so necessary sometimes.
We just neglect ourselves too much, I think.
We're taught to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary, but again, like, take advantage of the times of the light. Soon as that bleeding stops, like, ooh, let me write down a list of foods. I realize now I really wanted cheese puffs. Like,
yeah, and you know, that's where this whole guide was birthed out of, was, you know, the conversation that you and I had after you were able to kind of calm down a little bit, and you kind of came back into being able to process and being able to think and being able to kind of, you know, journey through thoughts and feelings and emotions, where, you know, before we spoke, you were just in this place of like, well, I don't know, I can't, you know, but by the time you and I were sitting on the couch, it was a reasonable suggestion to you. Like, oh yeah, I can make a list like that, you know, I can make for Chris, that he can say, oh, okay, she can't communicate, let me refer to the list, you know, bring her applesauce, check, you know, like, done. And then he feels like a superhuman, you know, and you're getting your needs met and all the things. But like, it's meant to be, and this guide is meant to be like helpful in both places, you know, like when you're stuck in darkness, you can go to the guide and you can find a feeling and you can get some help identifying. But then also, you know, when you're kind of in the light, or like in sort of a happy space, or like a content space, or an okay space, you can go and refer to some of the exercises and like step into those and do some journaling and talk to, you know, some of those 0 to 7 memories or experiences, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like messages. Yeah. Subconscious messages of, I'm not good enough. Like, we know, I mean, as women, we know sort of our core messaging, you know, I'm not good enough is a ginormous one that I think most of us struggle with. What are some others?
I mean, just this, I don't know exactly how to describe this, but it is that idea of that we need to be putting out this certain amount of work, or that we need to, it's the self-neglect of, we need to show up for everybody else first. We need to be the caretakers.
Yeah, put myself last, or like, I'm selfish if I take care of myself.
Yeah. We were even talking about that, me and my sisters, and we definitely did not all agree, which was okay. But it was just funny talking about how, you know, some of us viewed like that statement, you know, oh, put others first. It was almost triggering for me, and one of my other sisters were like, like,
Blech.
The fixed
That's another fixed eyes on Jesus moment.
We're like, what? No. And I think my other sister, who she's married, has like 5 kids, she's awesome, she was kind of able to step in this moment of like how of appreciation for that, of like, oh, well, like in my marriage I've found, you know, like it's important for me to put my husband's wants or needs before my own, but that doesn't mean that I just lay down and be a doormat, you know. And so like, it's hard to kind of put there's a lot of perspective there, but I think some people can kind of find a balance there, and other people, like probably myself and my other sister who really didn't like that statement of, oh, put others first, we'll find more freedom in I need to be first. Just because what we were taught 0 to 7 was that, like, be the doormat, not just put others first, like also care about other people's needs, but like literally be a doormat, vacuum and dust and clean and care and love and all the things out of everybody else before you even think about yourself or your selfish little whatever,
turd.
Yeah, whatever. But instead, now we have to live this life of, all right, I'm not going to neglect myself. I'm going to care for myself. And actually, in order to not go back to that state of doormat-ishness, I need to put myself first. Therefore, I will have the energy and the love and the care and the genuine desire to then care for other people. I mean, you live so many years as a doormat and you want to be the door.
Yeah.
You want to be the first thing. And I think in many ways we deserve to be the first things that we care for. You can't pour out of an empty cup.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference living for others when that's reciprocated. Like when you're, especially if you're in, I think it depends on the context or like what type of relationship we're talking about, right? So if it's a spouse and I'm constantly just pouring myself out for that person and that person doesn't pour into me, that if it's not reciprocal, there's a problem. Like that's not going to last very long. Or you're going to be able to pour yourself out, but eventually there's going to come a time where you'll start to resent. You'll get resentful and bitter. Like there will be some of that grows, I think. I don't know anyone who can just do that their entire lives and not get anything back. But I think, I don't know. I feel like that's what's really hard in religion, Christian religion for women, is that has been the culture.
Yeah.
And so women were in a certain generation in the religious world were raised to be content pouring out for your husband and your children and not getting anything back, because it was like, oh, if that's the ultimate for a woman, that's the ultimate union with Christ. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that's when you are almost like Mother Teresa status.
Oh yeah.
Them, because like if you can just be like Jesus, because that's what Jesus did. He poured himself out till he was bleeding. Have you bled for your husband and your children yet? I don't think so. So keep going.
I do monthly, actually.
Like literally, I have that thought or that memory somehow of like, I think I heard it from the pulpit, not directed at women, but directed at us as Christians, that like we haven't bled for our neighbor. So quit complaining and be more like Jesus. You know what I mean? Like you will never attain the level of sacrifice that Jesus showed on this earth because you're imperfect. So whenever you complain about wanting something or needing something, fix your eyes on Jesus. And just do the thing, do the sacrifice. And by the way, self gets sacrificed first. Because if you're wanting anything for yourself, it's just selfish, because Jesus never wanted anything for himself, which is a lie, by the way. Hey friend, pardon the interruption. I just wanted to give you a heads up that the Becoming Home podcast, a project from fullyabundantlife.com, is a free podcast. We don't monetize it, but we do ask that if it has encouraged you, if you've got some tools out of it, or if you just want to support Joe and I, run over to buymeacoffee.com/the Becoming Home podcast and buy us a coffee. It's really easy. It's really fun. Our coffee community there is growing, and we'd love to have you there. The coffees are $5 each. You can buy as many or as few as you want. But we did also start a membership site. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see back here what the site looks like when you find it. You'll see Joe and I's faces there in the front, a video clip there. But yeah, the membership site is going to be updated. We just started it, so we don't have a ton in there yet, but our plan is to put new content every month there that we don't put out anywhere else. So we, like last week, Joellen and I had a really great, just very generic conversation, and we recorded it, and we're not posting it. We're just going to have it in the membership site. So it was a pretty intense conversation about relationships and young marriage and difficulties, which actually we both are in a young marriage at this point. So it was a really intense, really beautiful conversation that found some really great stuff out of it. So we're going to put it there in the membership site. And that will be, where we keep some of those little more private, maybe a little more vulnerable things. So if you want to jump into the membership site and grab some more tools, grab some more content, or just show us that you support us and want us to be successful on this journey, we would really appreciate that. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about coffees. Now back to the conversation. He went off all the time by himself.
Yep. Oh, it's so crazy. I don't know who I was talking to. Maybe it was you. I don't know. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and we talked about just the number of times Jesus did just go off and be like, I need to go be with my Father. Like, there were crowds, and I mean big crowds of people who were like needing healing, needing a good word from Jesus. And he said, I need my space. I need to go be with my Father. Jesus didn't even have periods, and he had boundaries. Like, you can do it too.
I know, he wasn't even on his cycle, and
That's
he
right.
got to go do it. So
that's right. So I can take a day off of work now.
Yeah. It's funny.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure my boss will love that.
It's funny when you were mentioning that earlier about taking a mental health day. I had this thought of like, oh my God, that was never a thing for me.
Oh, it's not. It's still not.
I feel like it is more today than it was, though. Like, it wasn't even a phrase that existed in our world.
That makes sense.
A mental health day was not even a phrase. Like, no.
I feel like if somebody would have been like, oh, I need a mental health day, someone like whacked you over the head and like, go drink out of the water hose, you'll be fine.
Yeah. It just was not even a concept. And
Yeah.
it's at least a concept now.
Yeah.
And some people employ it,
I think there's some.
I have, I'm not gonna
employers.
lie, like in the last year, there have been 1 or 2 times, and I'm trying to remember if I felt really guilty. I know, because I remember there's one time where I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything. I just had to stay in bed. I don't remember if something specific was going on or what the deal was, or if I just was so emotionally low that I just needed a day off. And I remember having the back and forth conversation in my head of like, no, this is not okay. You're
not bleeding, dying, or throwing
actually
up.
sick. And like, I remember thinking, I can't call my boss or text my boss and say I need a mental health day. Yeah. Like, I couldn't in my own world, in my own head, that was not an option. I needed to actually be sick.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Like, contagiously hacking sick.
Must have at least 100-degree fever. Yeah. No, that is exactly. Yeah.
I think I still took the day, but I said, I told him I was sick. I didn't feel well. Because like at some point I rationalized myself into, okay, I don't feel well. I think that's where it was. I landed on is that I truly don't feel well.
Yeah.
It just was a different kind of not feeling well. But I had to like totally justify myself and have this weird back and forth inside my own head of like giving myself permission to, I can't show up for people today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so weird.
That's still something I haven't done in my own job yet, and I'm waiting for the day when either I gain the confidence to do it or I have no other choice but to do it, because I'm sure it will come at some point. But yeah, like they have mental health days in school, so why don't I?
Mm.
And
What does that look like?
at work?
No, you said they have them in
school?
school?
I think so. Maybe not in all schools, but yeah, kids can like have their parents call in and be like, "Oh, my kid needs a mental health day," because like,
well, we know it's an epidemic after the pandemic. It's like crazy what they're dealing with right now. But
so that's probably part of why they exist now, is because of the pandemic. But yeah, it's even Jesus knew when to have a mental health day.
He maybe only needed a moment. I don't know, but
I'm just glad that he took it. I think it just shows us a lot of perspective on what's real and what it really is to be human, which is funny because we have all been taught in the church of, oh, he was fully God and fully man, but the man part was sinless and perfect and, totally unrelatable.
What does that even mean?
And so for Jesus to actually be the one to teach us how to be more human, I think is kind of funny, but also amazing of, oh, he took some mental health time. He took some space. He had boundaries. And while, yes, he was kind, loving, soft, amazing, great, he also turned over tables and brought out whips in the temple when people were like selling things where they were supposed to be worshiping and creating this loving space of relationship with the Father. He was like, this is not here. And like, I don't know, Jesus was all the things. And I don't know.
Yeah, I struggle with that sometimes because I don't feel like the Bible gives us very much, or maybe it does, and I just haven't known how to read it, of his humanity. Like, you never see him cussing anybody out. You never see him like, I don't know. Maybe I just need to go back and kind of, what's interesting, I find interesting, and this is maybe a side topic and I might edit this out anyway, but when you go to the Bible with an intention to see something, like if I go to the book of John and I say, okay, I want to go read the book of John because I want to see the humanity of Jesus, I'm going to be looking for ways that Jesus was human, instead of going to the Bible and just saying, I'm just going to read the book of John and see what happens, right? If I take a certain viewpoint that I want to get from it, my brain is going to look for that. The same thing happens in our lives. Ooh, this is getting into quantum stuff. We're not editing this out. This is coming. Okay, so I had mentioned that I've been reading books on quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And science, so like quantum physics used to be called just a theory. And in some places when you go online and you research, it still is called theory because there are like different camps. Okay. And there's a traditional scientific camp, the kind that we learned about in school, where you can measure something and only by what the results are, like the results will tell you whether it's actual or not, or true or not, or, like if it can't be measured, it's not real, that kind of thing. Does that sound accurate or familiar? It's called, these books I've been reading are calling it scientific materialism. So like there's the scientific community that really focuses on what you can see and measure and things that are tangible. And so they think that this other scientific community who is looking more at energy, what you can't see, that's all theory. That's all like maybe that exists, right? But the quantum scientific community has developed tools, like, because we've advanced so much in technology. I mean, the quantum ideas have been around for hundreds of years. Like Einstein was, like there's all these brilliant scientists of the past that were thinking about this type of stuff and saying, like, if we ever got into really being able to measure and look and discover, like, it's going to blow the world apart.
That's crazy.
And it's happening. In our day, it's happening. Because we've progressed so much in technology that we now have tools where we can actually see things happening. So when I was saying that if I go to the Bible with a thought in mind that something I'm looking for, I'm going to find it. Things are going to stand out to me. And we in the religious world may have just said, oh, well, that's just the Spirit showing you something. That's just Holy Spirit, like, revealing something to you that you're ready to see, that you're ready to hear. So the Spirit shows it to you. It was always there. You might just have missed it because you weren't ready for it. Okay. So there's this thing called the double slit experiment. I think double slit experiment. And basically it proved that particles, which are small. So we used to think that the building blocks of everything was the atom, right? Like, it has a photon, it has an electron, it has all the three things, and that's the building blocks. So, go back to 5th grade science class. I don't know, go look it up. But even smaller than that, on a subatomic, underneath atoms, everything starts out as energy. And there's potential energy, so like pre-energy. And because what they also have found, I don't know the names of the tools that they've discovered this with, but they've also discovered that energy is like this tiny particle that pops in and out of existence so fast, like it's here and not, here and not, here and not, here and not. But it's like so fast, it's not visible, right? So that's where I think this potential energy idea sits, is like there's the potential for everything. So the double slit experiment was this moment where scientists were able to discover that these particles of energy have two states. One particle can behave in two different ways. It can be like a marble and be in one place at one time and like boop, like pop against the wall. The double slit experiment had like a wall in the background. Okay, so like here. So like, say this is your wall. This is one slit, like a hole in the screen. So like if this thing right here is a screen against a wall, right? Mm-hmm. This screen has two holes in it that would get through the screen to the wall, right? So a particle, an energy particle, can do two things. It can be like a little marble and go through, because they did it with one slit first. And so with one slit, they saw if you threw like a crap ton of particles at the screen, some of them would go through the slit, right? And so against the wall, you'd have a bunch of particle marks on the wall. The rest would be on the screen. Mm. Well, they also discovered like wave patterns. So think of water hitting this opening in the screen. It would create this weird ripple effect on the other side of the screen. And so on the wall, you would see like the point of impact against the wall would be where the ripple was like straight on. And then, as the ripple goes out, you see on a lake, how it's round. So like the hardest point of impact, or the straightest point of impact, I should say, has the hardest, what's the word I'm looking for? Pattern.
Okay.
And then, so like, if you think about it as a circle, the further it goes out, the lighter it would become, right? It has less power out that direction. So that's what they saw, right, with one. And then when they had 2 slits, 2 holes in the screen, the marble kind would have, it would have a pattern against the wall that showed just from here, and then the rest were on the screen, right? But then the wave, it showed 2 points of impact because it had 2 slits. And then where they overlapped on the other side, I'll link a video.
This is so cool.
Because I feel like I'm still new at learning it, so I am not great at explaining it yet. But so with the wave pattern, there would be 2 points of impact, right? So if you think of throwing 2 pebbles in the lake, they're both going to make ripples. And so where those ripples meet each other, that's a new point of impact. So there's all these different heavy spots, heavy impact areas. And so basically they discovered that particles can do both. These energy particles can be like marbles, or they can be like waves. They were able to figure that out because of this experiment and how it showed on the back wall. Well, then they were like, well, which particles are going through as marbles and which ones are going through as waves? Like, how do we decide? How do we know? And so they set up a camera, or like some kind of measuring device. I don't know if it was a person or like some kind of device that could observe. And the moment that the particle was being observed, it wasn't a wave anymore.
Wow.
It was just a particle, or just like a marble. And it would go through like a marble instead of a wave. So this double slit experiment, and again, please go find the link and watch the experiment where they explain it way differently and way better than I do. But essentially, it was an experiment that helped them to identify the fact that an observer changed the behavior of the particle simply by observing. And so that's where we come back around to, if I go to the Bible and say, I want to see X, I'm going to see X.
Oh.
And the same thing will happen in our life. What we focus on is what comes to us. And so and this is everything we've talked about previously about neural pathways and neural networks. The more we travel that path, the more we beat down the grass on that pathway, right? So the brain just naturally goes that direction. It's easy for us to go that way. Eventually, grass doesn't even grow there anymore. It's like the 2 tire trucks through the field, tire tracks through the field. And so it's the same kind of thing. What we put our focus on is what we experience and what we bring into our life. And so if we can learn these skills, like some of the ones that we talk about in the guide, if we can learn these skills of becoming aware and paying attention and observing and giving a name and giving a space and giving a voice to these things that we've experienced in our past, or these things that we go through, these messages that keep coming up, then we have the power to change the perspective. Like, where our perspective lands is what the direction it'll go.
Mm.
And so if I choose to sit in dark or shadow side emotions, if that's where I'm putting my focus and my attention, then I'm cultivating more of that. But if I'm able to change my perspective and my focus to light side emotions of love and gratitude and honor and cherish and value, if I can look at my life through those lenses, then I'm able to recreate my viewpoint on my life, and I can even go back and rewrite old memories and bring that perspective into the memory. So like say I've got, instead of reading the book of John with a perspective, I'm going to go back and look at a particular memory from my childhood that's maybe especially painful. And I'm going to look for love, honor, value, worthy, cherish, gratitude. And so when I bring those into that memory, I'm able to almost inject those and rewrite that memory in my brain, because my brain is just looking for evidence. It's not actually that smart, like in the traditional sense of smart, how we might think of smart. The brain is not doing the things. The brain is responding to me doing the things. The brain is just it's an organ doing what it was designed to do from 0 to 7. It's just looking for evidence of that framework. And so now that I'm older and I'm an adult, I have awareness of the fact, I have conscious awareness of the fact that I'm seated in a different place. I get to choose the seat that I view my life from. I can sit in the garden of my shadow emotions, or I can sit in the garden of my light emotions and choose those as my lens and redefine or recreate my life going forward. I can even recreate my past because I can take those lenses into my past experiences and rewrite them. It's like rewriting software on a computer. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza, I know I've mentioned his work before on the podcast. Like he has this whole book about how they have all these scientific tools and things that they like put all, the patches on, and they measure the brain waves and all the things. And they've been able to show the process of rewiring and even like on a physical level, not even just your emotions, but his story is so powerful because he was in some kind of accident and he was told he'd never walk again. And he employed this brain work, this energetic brain work, and he regenerated parts of his body.
That's crazy.
It's like, if he can regenerate parts of his body that medical people told him he should write off completely and just get a wheelchair, pal, because you're never walking again, Like imagine what we can do just with our emotions. Thanks so much for joining us on the Becoming Home podcast. On behalf of Joe and myself, we want to thank you so much for investing your time here. Don't forget, you can head over to fullyabundantlife.com and grab more resources, grab a free guide on emotional processing tools. It's packed full of information over there. The guide has over 100 emotional words to help you identify exactly what you're feeling, more than just happy, mad, sad, grumpy, hungry, whatever. 100 words or more to help you really identify what's going on inside of you so that you can really process that better. Exercises to process. It's giving tons of information, somatic, where the emotion may be trapped in the body. There's loads of information in that guide, all for free. So fullyabundantlife.com, you'll see it right when you click on that website. And then if you need other information, I've got tons of stuff there for you to grab. So head on over there. Thank you again for being with us. We'll see you next time.